Hi everyone, my name is Bree Freeman. I am a USU CAPS intern, and today I'll be presenting on the second module in our ADHD workshop on memory organization and time management. So, first we'll talk about why it is difficult for individuals with ADHD to begin organizing. So individuals with ADHD often experience difficulty with organizing due to us having a lower working memory and processing speed. So working memory is our short-term memory, so our ability to gain information and keep it in our brain for a short period of time. That is lower in people with ADHD. So that's a big component on why it's harder for individuals with ADHD to organize, because it's harder to remember certain information or organize specific things because our short-term memory is a bit lower. Other reasons is due to difficulties making decisions. A lot of times organization involves a lot of different steps when it comes to decision making. You have to decide what to organize first, how to go about that, what are the first steps with that, what to choose to even begin with. So because of a lot of those difficulties with making decisions, it's harder to engage with organization tasks. The other reason that we struggle a bit more with organization is due to difficulties managing our time to begin with. Time feels like a different construct with people with ADHD, and we'll discuss that a little bit more deeper later in the presentation. And the other reason why organization is difficult with people with ADHD is individuals with ADHD struggle more with perfectionism. So it's hard to even get started because we feel that if we organize, it has to be perfectly organized to begin with. So it's harder to even begin with when we have that certain expectation up front. So we'll dive into some different strategies that help individuals with ADHD improve our working memory, improve our organization skills. So we'll dive into some organization tools, some repetition methods, as well as some mnemonics and time management skills that we can use that will help improve our organization and our working memory. So first, one strategy that we can use is set some time limits for decision making. So if you notice that decision making is a big barrier in organizing, you can set a deadline for yourself. So for example, if you're deciding on what specific class to apply to, you can set a deadline for yourself and say, okay, on this date, I will decide which class I'm going to take and sign up for it that day. If you're deciding on like an apartment or a dorm or a roommate to have, you can also give yourself a deadline and say, by this time on this date, I'm going to make a decision. So that way you can give yourself that time limit, and it narrows you down and encourages you more to set some sort of decision. Another way that you can use is create a specific rubric for yourself and grade each class and each assignment or each apartment complex or dorm, whatever you're trying to make a decision on. Set a rubric for yourself on the factors that are most important to you and grade it. And that's a way you can also help create an easier decision that is well informed. So another barrier that individuals with ADHD run into is we often stretch ourselves out too thin. So we commit to a lot of different tasks, even though maybe once we take a step back, we realize that we don't have that much time or energy to dedicate to all these different tasks. So one thing to do is to challenge those overcommitting tendencies. So for each new commitment that maybe you adhere to, take one off of your table. So for example, if you are a leader of one club, but you're really interested in becoming a leader in another club, drop your leadership position in that one club and take on the new one. And you can also keep a tally mark of the overall different commitments and tasks that you have at hand. So that way you can limit yourself to a certain number or limit yourself to a specific amount of commitments that you have. Also begin practicing turning down new requests. So when you notice that you're taking on a lot of commitments, practice turning down the next one. Say, hey, thank you, I'd really am interested in what you're requesting for me to do, but I have a lot on my plate right now, so I can't really give the energy and time that I would like to towards this project. So get into the practice of turning down and saying no to new tasks. So some other strategies that we can do to help with organization is to keep brief to-do lists. So you can start out by doing a brain dump, which is basically just writing a bunch of things that you need to do on a piece of paper and having that all laid down. And then identify less than 5 tasks that you can complete at that time and write it on like a note card or another piece of paper and hide the brain dump to-do list away so that way you don't feel overwhelmed. So identify under 5 tasks that you need to do at that time and complete those. Once you complete those 5, then you could pull out your brain dump task and identify 5 more or a couple more that you could do. Or if you just complete those 5 for that day, that's great as well. This way it helps feel less overwhelming because then we're able to see, okay, I could complete these 5 tasks instead of these 50 to 100 tasks that maybe we have to do at that time. The other skill to keep in mind is to challenge hyperfocus. So individuals with ADHD often, because we run on an interest-driven nervous system, we often can get very hyper-focused on specific tasks and fall into that for a long period of time. So one way we can help with that is set an alarm, a timer, or even have a friend or a roommate call you or check in on you at a specific time to say, hey, are you starting your other assignment? Or are you starting this other task you need to do? That's one way that you can help decrease that hyper-focus and make sure that we're organizing and focusing on whatever we need to do at that time. So another skill you can use to help with organization and kind of keeping you on a specific task is have a friend or a family member serve as like a body double. So someone can sit with you as you complete tedious, annoying tasks, annoying organization tasks. So you can start with homework, job application, like apply for loans, those specific tasks that feel tedious but are necessary to do. Have a body double and have them work on whatever they need to work on during that time. But what we found is often just having someone in the room with you can really help you stay organized and focused on that specific task at hand. So some skills and strategies that we can use to help increase our daily structure and have more daily skills that we engage with is first by having a schedule and a to-do list set up. So as we mentioned before, having that short, brief to-do list that you need to do for that day and have that in a place that is visible and that you can regularly see. So the reason why it's important that's in a visible place is because of that lower working memory, as soon as a task is not visible and not in our regular visual field, we tend to forget about what we need to do. This is why it's so common that individuals with ADHD experience forgetfulness. They may say, oh, I need to remember to do this by tonight. And as soon as they get home, they totally forget what they need to do. So it's important that you have a reminder set up in a visible area. So some people use sticky notes. You can have a notification or alarm on your phone to remember to do that. Whatever works for you, set up the reminders in a regularly visible area. Also, to begin creating more structure and new habits and new routines, start with something small. So pick 1 to 3 regularly scheduled commitments or tasks that you'd like to do and start with those 3 as opposed to wanting to include 5 or more or all these different tasks that we want to include, right? Write these tasks down on a note card and complete these tasks once a week. So that's how we can start including more habits and more daily structured scheduled tasks. So here's an example of some note cards that you can use as a way to help include those new tasks at hand. So you can pause and read through those in case you'd like a more thorough example. So another way that we can help with our working memory is by using repetition skills. So there's two different types. There's maintenance rehearsal and elaborative rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal is basically just verbatim repeating information over and over again until it's instilled in your memory. So we do this a lot with like phone numbers, addresses, certain information that we just need to know on a daily basis and just kind of repeat that over and over again. So that's one thing you can do. Another skill you can use is elaborative rehearsal, which uses more specific encoding strategies to help associate new information with the information you are trying to remember with something that you're already familiar with. So, for example, you can use personal examples of your life and attribute that to that information you need to remember. You can use imagery. Like, for example, one way to remember the function of the hippocampus part of your brain, which is memory and learning, is to visualize a hippo sitting in a class struggling to learn and remember information. So kind of like goofy images like that can really help encode and remember information better. So, some strategies that we can use to help remember our daily items that we need to have with us on a day-to-day basis is to just use some sort of easy phrase or mantra. So a common one that students may use is to say, keys, phone, wallet, and say that before you leave the door and check to make sure you have those at hand. So that's one technique you can use. But also you can make a list of the important items that you need on a day-to-day basis, or if that changes depending on the day or week, like if you have different classes or work schedule, depending on each day of the week, you can create a list of required important items and keep that near like your door or a place that you'll see regularly. So you can go through those lists on that day that you're leaving your house and make sure that you have all those items that you need. So some other memorization techniques that we can use, this can be really effective with studying as well, is to use mnemonics. So there's a variety of different skills and mnemonics that you can use to help remember specific information, study, remember important information for a test. That can be really effective for people with ADHD. So one is chunking, so organizing bigger information into smaller groups, so breaking that down a bit further. Creating a musical and some sort of like jingle to help you remember specific information. If you've watched Hannah Montana, you probably have seen the reference from there where she sings and creates a song to help her remember the different bones in the body. So you can also use acronyms. So there you use the first letters to create an acronym that prompts you to remember that information at hand. So an example is you can use HOMES to remember the names of the Great Lakes, such as Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Another one is to remember spell because. You can remember big elephants can always use some exercise as an example. So those are different mnemonics and acronyms that you can use. So some additional mnemonics that you can use is acrostics, which is assigning each letter in a concept to make up a phrase. So for example, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally is a way that you can remember the order of operations in math. Another one is rhyming. So rhymes can be very effective tools in remembering information. Like we often learned while growing up and during school, I before E except after C. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. You can use different rhymes to help remember specific information. Another strategy is connections. So there you identify connections between specific information to help remember them a bit better. So for example, you can remember the directions of longitude and latitude because north and south are long in longitude, where the lines running east and west are ladder, like in latitude. So you can draw connections as a way to help remember and attribute information a bit better. There's also a lot of different apps that you can use to help just improve your day-to-day working memory. So there's ones like Luminosity, Brain Fitness Pro, and Memory Trainer that are all really effective tools that you can do just in your passing time. So while you're waiting for a class to start or while you're waiting in line, you can just pull out this app and run through it to help just improve your memory on a day-to-day basis. So now that we discuss some different strategies you can use to improve your working memory, we'll also dive into some time management skills that we can use as well. So the reason why individuals with ADHD struggle a bit more with time management is we often misperceive the passing of time. So we're unable to keep an accurate account and idea of how long specific time periods are. So one thing that we can use to help with that is set up multiple alarms. So setting an alarm by this time I need to be done getting ready for the morning. By this time I need to be out of the house and on my way to class. Those are different things you can use to help encourage yourself to kind of keep in track and keep in mind of how long specific tasks take for you. You can also journal and see how long each task takes for you, so that way you can get an idea of what time feels like for you as well. The other thing that is really helpful for time management and getting an accurate representation of time is using a visual timer. So these are timers that you are able to download on your phone on an app, or you can buy a physical one, and they show usually in the color red, the amount of time that is passing. And as that red starts to go down a bit more, it's easier to see how much time you have remaining. So it's a really useful tool for people with ADHD because it helps you actually visualize the amount of time that you need to, the amount of time left in a particular task. So with your morning routine, some time management skills that you can use is to set up the night before. So if you have specific things that you need to take with you before you leave out the door, have that set up and ready to go for you. Pick out your outfit the night before. Have everything set up so that way it's easier for you and less time consuming to have to maybe run around your apartment or your dorm to grab everything. You can also create a morning routine and have this list in a regularly seen area. So like on your mirror or on your bathroom door or whatever that may be for you. So that way it's easier to follow that specific morning routine that you know is effective and quick for you. So another thing that individuals with ADHD struggle with is accurately predicting the amount of time it takes to complete a specific task. So estimate for yourself how long it takes to complete a particular task, then double or triple it. So for example, if you're like, I could complete this discussion post in 30 minutes, maybe you want to give yourself 90 minutes to finish that task. So start with that and see how that feels for you. Also practice task and journal how long it takes for you, so that way you can see accurately, I thought it was going to take this amount of time, but in reality it took this amount of time. You can also use a planner or a calendar to dedicate this time and have that planner in an area that you regularly see, because as I mentioned before, as soon as that planner is out of your visual field, we tend to forget about it. We forget that it even exists because of our lower working memory. So have that planner in a regularly seen area, in a visible area, and walk through what tasks that you need to plan and organize for that day. So here's a worksheet that you can use that is really helpful for time management and for specific goals that you have at hand. And here's a variety of different apps that you can use to help manage your time. Thank you for joining us today. We have linked a variety of references and resources below if you'd like to look into some of these information a bit deeper.